Hi everybody, it's Sarah Cray and I teach watercolor, and today we are doing our Nativity project.
Ooh.
We have Michael here working the cameras.
Hello.
He's my husband. And we have our dog Birdie.
She's over there.
She's hanging out. She's quiet, but she's great. We are going to do this project in 5 steps. So our very first step is we are going to paint our sky value wash with salt. Our second step is we are going to paint our mid-ground with the buildings over here. Our third step is we are going to do our the yellow part within our manger and the little highlight. And our, well, I guess there's 6 steps, because our 5th step is going to be putting in the rest of this foreground. And then our very last step is putting in our stars, highlights, details, any finishing kind of details. I've already transferred my outline onto my paper. I like to paint with the card already folded, but that is my personal choice. You guys are free to approach this whatever way you feel comfortable. Just make sure you're painting on the right side so when the card opens up, it's not upside down. I have 3 paintbrushes here, my round 4, my round 10, and my 3/4 inch wash. I have all my paint colors. I have salt, I have bleed-proof white, and I'm using Holbein soft tape as my tape. I like to leave at least, I don't know, at least a 1/4 inch border around my painting. So that gives me a lot of space to do whatever I want for a border. This one I chose just to do like a nice thin line using a gold pen, but give yourself an opportunity to use that space if you want to. Okay, we are going to do our oath and then we'll start painting. So if you can raise your right hand and repeat after me. I promise to be kind to myself.
I promise to be kind to myself.
I promise not to compare my work.
I promise not to compare my work.
And I promise to have fun.
And I promise to have fun.
And I love this way to start because I want you guys to recognize, in the same way of Christmas is really about love and kindness and giving and what we have received through Christ. Art can be that way too, in terms of we don't come up to a piece of paper approaching this as this is going to be my best painting in the world, or I'm only doing this to be better than someone else. The real joy of creativity is the process of creating. And I believe that through spreading love, or we can spread love through sharing our art, which is why I think like making cards is the perfect way to do this. So give yourself kindness, help yourself remember the true reason why you decide to take time to paint and create, and recognize that whoever receives this card is not as concerned with it about having a perfect painting. It's more like this person who loves me made something for me, and that is special. So with that, let's get started. I wanted to show you quick on the outline that I have here. You'll see that I have some straight lines here to kind of show that there's a spotlight. I did not trace those in. I did not want those lines on my painting. You can if you want, but for me, it's just more like a mental reminder that I want this to be a lighter value in the middle. I also wanted to show you guys how many nativity options I went through. This was number 1. This was number 2. This was number 3. And then here was the last one, and I knew that that was it. And I just want to show you that because sometimes seeing how artwork evolves is just interesting, and also just to give you different ideas. You know what I mean? Like maybe you want to put the star across and do like the highlight going across instead of straight down. Maybe you want to do it closer than so far away. Maybe like this painting is super dark. I didn't do like a highlight on that one or a spotlight kind of effect. So do what you will with that. Were they able to see them all? Okay. Let's get to work. I'm going to take my 10 and I'm going to mix a really, really dark blue. So I'm going to use navy. I already have some dark blue on my palette from when we did the Wiseman project. But I have navy, I'm going to put in some red. I feel like that really adds some green. More navy. Okay. And you're going to want to essentially do a darker edge, and then as you work your way towards this star in the center, not the center, but over here, it's going to be a lighter value. So I'm going to start by putting in dark, add water, and start moving that color. And then when I get to this highlighted area, it's going to be nice and white, light. Continue that lightness, okay? And then now I'm going to pick up more paint. And even more paint. Have this be the darkest edge over here. But we want a very clear, very obvious spotlight. And then I like to take my 3/4 inch wash, and it's a great way for me to kind of smooth out colors and values. Kind of just smooths it. Just like that. Now, if you want salt, this is where you put it in. Boop, boop. And you're also allowed to have your own opinion about salt, or if you're just like, actually, I don't really care for salt or the texture, don't put it in. No pressure. Gosh, I'm kind of really proud of that highlight I have going on here. Now, I will say the difference is I kind of had the highlight go all the way to the top here. I actually am wondering if I need to slightly adjust it. Because you see, I want it to kind of be more directly over the manger, and it's kind of the like spotlight is kind of more to the right. So if that happens, you can just lift. Using your 10 or your 3/4. I like to use my 10 and then do my 3/4 to blend. And I feel like I just need to do one more layer along this edge. I want it to be nice and dark. That's the good and bad thing about using like a wash brush to blend, is it makes it nice and smooth, but sometimes it takes out your darkest value. Like it just kind of evens it out to a medium value. So sometimes you just gotta do another layer. I told my husband that this project is just a little bit trickier than the Wiseman, and this is why. This sky just takes a little bit more finessing. Okay, that feels better to me in terms of that kind of spotlight effect. Okay. Let's just see what this salt does. It might not do a lot, but that's okay. Okay, that was step 1. Now we are going to do our mid-ground. So I'm going to use that 10. I'm going to grab that kind of same blue. You can add a little bit more of that lighter blue for saturation if you want. Now, one thing that I want to call attention to is that when it comes to this spotlight, and we have 2 layers of ground, the spotlight would also highlight the area behind it, not just the manger. So when we put this in, you want to take that into account. And by take that into account, what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to rinse my brush so it's just more water. So then there's a slight value shift. And the same thing on this side. And you can paint into the foreground, like past the sketch lines, because we're going to be covering those with a really dark value anyway. Okay. And I lost a little bit of my sketch when I did this dark layer. Yours, depending on how dark you drew it, could still be there. So I'm just going to kind of eyeball some of these like building shapes. And you can even lift out color too, because this value is looking really dark. So I'm actually going to just take a damp brush and kind of essentially paint with my damp brush and lift to create some of these building shapes. I'm just kind of smoothing out the wash. Okay, we're going to leave that. We're going to leave that and not do anything else to it for now. And now I'm going to move on to step 3. I'm going to put in the yellow on my manger. I wanted it to feel like a glow, like all of this like warmth and love was happening right here in this space. And so I illuminated it to kind of give it that feeling. So I'm going to take just yellow, and I'm actually going to put the yellow along the edges. And then as it gets closer to the silhouette figures, that's where it gets lighter. Because if you think about like a flame or something that's hot, when something is really hot, it's white. So I really wanted it to be like this glow, and the source of the glow was baby Christ, and then it kind of spread out the warmth and went from there. I am going to I need to find my red, because I want to create like an orangey color. There we go. So I got yellow, and I'm going to mix just a tiny, tiny bit of red in there to give it some more warmth. And you can decide how warm you want it to be, essentially like how orange you want to go. And then as I work my way towards, it gets lighter, with the lightest part being right where oh shoot. I had paint on my finger and I touched it. So I'm just going to lift that out. If you work fast enough, you can just lift color right out. It's not the end of the world. Can't even tell that happened. Grab some more yellow and just do one more layer. And this is your painting, so if you're just like, I'm good with the one, you absolutely have a right to say that. This is yours. Okay. I'm going to let that dry for a second, and I am going to do my foreground silhouette. But the thing I want you guys to kind of pay attention to is I'm using a really dark value along the edges, and then as it gets towards the manger itself is going to be casting kind of a yellow glow on the ground. So I'm going to kind of do a really light value with my blue here, and then I'll go in with some yellow and add that in to give that glow feel. So I'm going to mix more blue, dark blue, essentially all the colors together. If it's reading too purple, put in some yellow. If it's reading too green, put in some red. And if it's reading too not the color you want, just keep adding blue. And then it will reach that blue dark value you're looking for. There we go. And you want to make sure your second layer is dry before you do this part, because we don't want any accidental bleeds. We want to keep the layers pretty sharp and separate from each other. But honestly, sometimes accidental bleeds are my favorite thing. So you see I'm kind of avoiding that spot in the front. And now is when I'm going to take some water, start adding water to this to lighten up that value. And this is why I love mixing colors so much, because the color blue that I'm getting is different than my reference photo. It's probably going to be different from yours. And I do not see that as bad. I see that as an opportunity for us to have variation within our work and celebrate our uniqueness of what we're bringing to this table. So if you're painting this and you're just like, oh gosh, this color is not the same color she's getting, that's okay. I don't want you to have the same exact color. I want this to be yours. Okay, now I'm going to add some yellow to this ground. You got to be careful though, because yellow and blue together make green. So I'm trying to minimize the amount of blending that's happening between these two colors. I'm going to add a little bit of red to make orange to this kind of glow down here. Okay. And then now I kind of want to transition a little bit better between my dark value and that yellow part. And I wanted a little bit more saturated blue. So I just went in and like dove straight into that blue color on my palette and threw that into the mix. And you guys can decide if that's the right move for you or not. No pressure. Okay, that feels pretty good. And then I'm gonna wanna switch to my round 4 and do, using the same, like as dark of a value as you have, do the rest of the silhouette around the manger. So I have some bushes here. Ooh, I got a cool bleed. I'm gonna leave that. And if you're feeling especially brave, you can try some animal silhouettes, you know, cows and sheep, maybe a shepherd, whatever you feel like. You have your full you have my full permission to change this design to something that you would like to see, that you would like to add in there. Just doing tiny little dashes along the edge of that tree. Gosh, I love that little bleed that happened in there. I'm going to see if I can make that happen on this side. I'm adding a bush. I just think it's pretty. Yeah. And if your yellow is dry, you can go ahead and start putting in the structure. Now, I'm not going to lie, when I created all of these projects, all of my mangers were a little wonky. They weren't totally centered. We had some that was just like leaning. I decided to be okay with that and not have this like perfectly safe, really rigid thing. I let it be a little bit wonky and weird, but I just want to call attention to that it's actually a little bit tricky to get like a very, for me anyway, even shaped building. So I'm just calling that out, and I decided to make peace with it instead of like hating what I made, you know? And you can see that I'm kind of leaving the rooftop a little bit white because I actually want to bring in a little bit of brown to that. And the reason for that is if we have this light shining down on something that's really dark, it won't create like a strong white highlight, but it will have a lighter value. So I had to think, okay, what would be the color of this? And let's introduce that color a little bit to show that light is shining down on this building. So I'm going to make like a brown. And brown is like a dark orange, so I did yellow, red, a little bit of blue. I just don't want it to read green. That's what I don't want. So if it's reading too green, add more red. Or if you just want to keep it simple because you can't get the color that you're really going for, you can just do the whole thing black. It really is not a huge deal. But sometimes it's just the little things that really... Okay, that feels good. Gosh, I'm so in love with that bloom that happened right there. A little bit more yellow, but just a hint. I'm going to try and transition that out smoother, lifting it out with the damp brush, then kind of working the area back and forth. There we go. That feels better. And then when you know that it's nice and dry, I'm going to give it a little second longer before I add the silhouettes of the people. See, even now, my little manger is so wonky. It's okay though. Okay? Give that a second, and then I'm going to attend to these buildings. Just kind of like shaping them a little bit more. And you can see like these are a little bit lighter value. So if you want to add some bleed proof white and like brighten those up, you can. I still feel like you can see these buildings enough that I don't feel like I need to do that on mine. But you can make that decision for yours. I kind of like the idea. I mean, I'm going to do some little highlights to show that there's like a city there. But I kind of really like the idea of being like, that part doesn't actually matter. This part matters. So I'm gonna like push that away a little bit and not have it stand out. Okay. It's time. It's time to do the people. And it's just the tiniest little, I wanted it to have Mary kind of bending over. Isn't it? Standing. But still kind of bent forward, you know, like looking. I've lost a little bit of my outline, so I'm kind of just eyeballing it. And then just a little bit of a shadow. I'm lightening up my paint color just a little bit. So I'm trying to communicate this is a shadow, not the figure continued. There we go. I love that. Okay. Gosh, that looks so good. Now what we're gonna wanna do is we need to add our star, our big star, and our city lights. My salt work on this, I think it's probably because I went back in and messed with it after I put the salt, is I have a little bit of textures, but not nearly as much as this, and that's okay. That's the beauty with salt work. I really never know if it's gonna make like a huge difference or a little small difference, and it's a wonderful exercise in just being like, well, whatever happens is what happens, and that's okay. So this just had like a little more subtle effect, which I'm fine with. And we are going to flick some stars. I'm gonna move to my 10 and get a little bit bigger stars. So you're gonna wanna cover up any area that you don't want flicked paint on. You want to remove any expensive objects around. And I always like, with the bigger brushes that I'm using when I flick paint, I like to do a test flick and just make sure that it's not like crazy big. Then I add the stars. Okay. I'm gonna rinse that really well. Then I'm gonna use my 4 to kind of do more larger stars throughout. And then I'm gonna move the salt, the big star right above. And how I like to do these stars is you have an outline that you can try and fill in. I like to do a nice big round circle, okay? And then from there, I drag the paint going up, and I drag it going down. So you want kind of like a nice vertical line, but it's actually really tricky to get it like perfectly straight. So just warning. And then you're gonna wanna do a horizontal line. And these lines are all about the same length. And then you're gonna do a crisscross line that's roughly about half the size of the other lines. And then you're gonna kind of round where they meet that circle. You just kind of finesse it. Just like that. Okay, I feel good about that. And then I'm going to do my little yellow highlights in my city. So I'm going to take bleed proof white and a little bit of yellow. And I want it to be more yellow. Let's try that. There we go. So again, I'm hinting that there is stuff happening over here. But again, I do not want it to overtake my painting. And sometimes I'll use like the highlight to outline some of my buildings if I feel like they got a little bit lost. It's not accurate, but that's all right. It's my painting. All right. I think we're done. I think we did it. I do want to acknowledge that in the reference photo here, the spotlight started with the star, and I do feel like that made the star stand out a little bit more. I think it gets a little lost here. Do you see what I'm saying? So as you go to paint this, be aware of the placement of the star and where your highlight starts. And just something that you can do to kind of like, I mean, I don't suggest this, but I'm going to do it just to see what happens. I'm going to move the color. And let's just see. I like trying things in front of you guys because then you can see what I'm doing and being like, oh yeah, that worked. Or be like, nope, not for me. I'll take that risk for you. So I'm gonna have to paint over my white a little bit to get that. The trickiest thing is kind of matching the value. See what I'm saying? And I'm kind of smearing all of my salt work and I'm smearing all of my stars, but I just want to see if I could do it, you know? Now I got to kind of adjust the angle. See how it's going? Mer, mer. I like that little bit of blue that got introduced in there. It's nice. Let's do it on this side. I mean, it's not looking bad if I'm being honest.
I think it's beautiful.
Like that was a really kind of brave move, and it's not too bad. Almost there, you guys. And learn from me to say, yeah, I could do that, or no thanks. I would have just left it. Okay, I'm gonna dry it, and then I'm gonna reshape my star, and then we'll be done. And I'm probably gonna get a little bit more blooms because I was working the areas, and blooms happen when there's different amounts of water on your paper and they dry at different times. So because I went back and introduced water in one section, you'll get a bloom, but I don't hate blooms. Okay, let's do that star and then we will be done. I tricked you. You guys thought we were done. Okay, I'm gonna add where I kind of smeared my flecked stars. I need to put those back. And then if you want to do the star the same way that we did with the wise men, where it's kind of like this hint of yellow underneath, you absolutely can. I wanted to show you both, one with kind of just a clean white star, and then one with some yellow, so then you guys could figure out if you had a preference and then apply that to your own work. There we go. That feels good. And if you want to do little stars in the highlighted area, you can too. They just won't show up as well, and that's okay. Well, there we go. It's done. Honestly, I think my favorite part is this little bleed that happened on the bottom that I was not anticipating, but I love that. Okay, so you are going to want to let this dry. I mean, I always try and leave paintings taped to my desk for probably a day. I feel like that helps with keeping the image flat. But once you carefully remove the tape, you can add a border. And what I did with this one is I just took a gold Uniball pen, and I actually used just a straight edge. You can use a ruler if you want. And I just held it up and then just traced the lines and did that along all four sides. And I need to say that that was very brave of me to do, because I struggle with making straight lines. And I was just like, let's try it. But look at that. Look at that card. Okay. I hope you had fun painting this. I hope you guys take the opportunity to change it to something you would like. Remember that it's not about the perfect painting and it's not about the perfect card. It's about making memories, whether that's taking time for you and making something that you enjoy doing that you can share with others, or it's about gifting something that is important to you. And I will say that sometimes when we gift a painting, it's hard because we can't control how people react to it. We always hope that they love it. We always hope that they receive it with such kindness and gratitude. And to be honest, sometimes that doesn't happen. You know, I've given away paintings and they're like, oh, great, you know, and that's just part of it. So recognize that like the reaction, we can't control that. We have to like let that go, but know that this was the good part, making it and sharing it. And also I recognize that as I've gotten older, when sometimes family members, especially like my grandma or my mom, when they give me something that's handmade, sometimes right then in the moment, especially when I was younger, I didn't understand the value of that. And then now that I'm older, you know, looking at cards that my grandma signed after she passed, it's meaningful. And so just because there's not a strong reaction right away, that doesn't mean that they don't see the value or won't see the value. So with that being said, make these for your loved ones and your friends. Share the skill that you're learning, share the love, and you know, share that same message of that Christ shared, which is love one another, be kind. That's what it's all about. So thank you for painting with me. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.